Hello, everyone. Sorry for so loud. They told me to stay close to the microphone, as close as possible. The problem is I like to walk around, roam the auditorium during the talk, so something will not be recorded. That's okay. Yeah, it's possible to grab a mic. Yeah, that's a cool trick, actually. Might grab it right now. Just do it. I'm doing it. Okay, it's much better. Much better. So, great to see everyone. Thank you for coming for the last, is it very last? Probably very last talk of today. And of course, it's going to be a great talk. It will be about hashing. So, probably you have heard today about hashing a little bit, but this will be a completely different talk. So, I did kind of this talk beforehand, and it was too technical, a lot of formulas everywhere, from the title, formulas in the title. That's horrible. And now they were purely entertaining talks, because it's we are almost into the tonight, right? Everyone is thinking about the beer and then beer garden close by. So this will be entertaining stuff. But also I'll try to teach you some kind of new and funny things about ZK hashing that you may not know yet about. So this is actually joint work. So my biggest mistake that I forgot to put my co-authors into the list. I'm sorry. Co-authors, if you hear me, I know everyone. So Lorenzo, Christian, Marcus, Roman, yeah, and Reinhard, yeah, they also all helped me, and JP at the last stage also to develop these new functions. So why new directions in ZK hashing? Well, because new directions in cryptography, everyone wants to have a fancy title. So I will talk about some new stuff that has happened in hash function design thanks to fantastic new developments in zero-knowledge argument systems. So with the help of our close friends from zero-knowledge team, we are able to design much cooler functions. So why is that? In order to explain the story, I have to go a little bit to the past. 2 centuries ago, our story starts with a poor gardener, Joseph Monnier, who worked in a poor French country, in France, at Tuileries Gardens, near a small palace, at that part called Louvre. Joseph Monnier was tasked with a tedious task. He had to move orange trees back and forth, because orange trees were of great value to the country and to the palace. And unfortunately, the pots where orange trees are stored were quite too fragile. They broke and broke and broke. They had to dispose of the trees. This is not about trees, it's about pods. Joseph Monnier decided to reinforce a pod with iron bars. And he used this circle structure, so he put concrete in it, and he put iron bars at certain distance, and this made the construction far more durable. It withstood climate changes and kind of clumsy movings from outside to inside, and also some kids playing with orange trees, all this stuff. This invention was later presented at World Expo 67 to universal acclaim. People figured out that it's possible not only to use reinforced concrete to reinforce orange tree pods, but also apple tree pods, or various cherry tree pods. So, this invention was used everywhere. And of course, it was later called reinforced concrete, which by a chance also the name of our new hash function. So, what should you remember from this presentation if you have to go right now? If you have to go right now, so I designed a new function which is, of course, ZK friendly. And all these previous functions are terribly slow. You might know this already. But with lookup arguments, we can build a much, much better hash function, which kind of surpasses everything that you have known before. That's it. And now to the details. Yes, of course, reinforced concrete. So hash functions, up until very recently, they were used in tons of schemes and protocols. Signatures, blind signatures, aggregated signatures, multi-signatures, commitments, blind commitments, all these sort of things, including fiat shamir. And up to very recently, just normal hash functions were okay. Like, you can use SHA-256 everywhere. You can use, which hash function? Use SHA-256. If you're not okay with SHA-256, use SHA-512, or use SHA-3, or use SHA-3-512, or use SHA-3-512 truncated to 256. That was all not a problem. They were not even a bottleneck anywhere. So people were designing like faster and faster, Blake 2, Blake 2B, Blake 2S, Blake 3, Blake 4, Blake 69, but for what reason? They are never a bottleneck. Until we started using them in zero knowledge. With zero knowledge, everything becomes a bottleneck, in particular hash functions. Because what? For example, everyone knows about Zcash. So now everything is okay with Zcash, but this is about sad dark times of Zcash, like 6 or maybe even 7 years ago. So how Zcash works? Zcash is a private cryptocurrency thing. So in Zcash, all coins are stored in a Merkle tree. And you kind of, is there a laser here? No? I'll use my finger, sorry. I don't know where it's, doesn't work. No, it works? Oh, sorry. Okay, so basically, you know, if you have a coin, you know a secret. And in order to spend the coin anonymously, you have to prove that you know a secret and of one leaf in a tree. So anonymity comes from the fact that you know a leaf in a tree and you don't show which one, first, second, third, fourth. So anonymity comes from this. Original tree was built on SHA-256 because it's really, really great hash function, even though it was designed by NSA. But still, so far so good. No one has broken it yet. And a proof that I can spend my coin, it took like 40 seconds to generate. And of course that was inconvenient. So imagine you're paying for a beer and now you say, oh, well, I have to pay with my Zcash. 40 seconds, that's intolerable. Well, I probably use something less anonymous so everyone will know that I've paid for like ugly beer and, well, this complete break of privacy. That was horrible. They have improved significantly since then. They have now used much better hash, and everyone is now able to pay with beer with Zcash. Another story has also happened with the Fractal Protocol. Fractal Protocol is fantastic stuff. It's fantastic 70 pages of stuff. And it's recursive. It's really nice to read. I've read it, well, not entirely, but the stuff. It's really cool. It's not difficult to read. And the nice thing is they're using. You kind of prove that you have a proof that you have a proof, you know, all these recursive things. And in order to prove that you have a proof, you first commit to something, then you open something. You commit to something, then you open something. And you do it in Merkle trees because they don't want to use all these fancy pairing-based schemes that's all complicated. And in order to construct Merkle trees, they decided to use some hash function. Which hash function? SHA-256 won't work, Ketchuk won't work, so they decided to use Poseidon. So what do I think about using Poseidon as a Merkle tree? If a hash function that I partially designed, is it good? No. Why? Because they said, well, we tried Poseidon, and for prover it took 99% of time to generate the entire tree with Poseidon. And then they did kind of dirty optimizations, they employed really dark matters, and they managed to cut it down to 90%. So still a huge amount, even with Poseidon. And yeah, when I looked at it, I was very sad. They said, why not like employing our team? At that time, we had no money, no work. We had to design a new hash function. We could work for food. But yeah, well, unfortunately, this paper, we didn't notice the paper at the time of publication. So after we found it, it was already too late. So it's of course better. It's of course possible to find a hash function that makes this girl happy. So hash functions in zero knowledge. There are like two kind of nice usages. So first of all, of course, inside Merkle trees, but also in smaller, tiny things like commitments, but like in big applications in Merkle trees. So in accumulators, if you want to do set membership with Merkle trees, we have seen today that after using calc, this application is somehow kind of crossed because, well, calc is much better regarding accumulate if you prove multiple things. If you prove a single thing, then hash function is still quite good. So Merkle tree is accumulator, and the second one is, again, if you do this commit reveal things in Fry, so all this fractal case, it boils down to this one. So used here and there and everywhere, actually in many places. And we wanted to design a hash function that would work nicely here, would work nicely here, would work nicely everywhere else. How we did that? Yeah, first how problems are solved. First, we looked into the requirements. So requirements are the first thing you start with. So we like how to choose a laptop. Laptop must be light and lightweight, and it must have like huge battery capacity. Well, unfortunately, these things rarely go together. So pretty much same thing here. So you have like what we need from a ZK hash function. It must be very fast, close to like mainstream hash functions. It must be very secure. And secure, it doesn't mean that you just produce a security proof and that's it. In a hash function case, it's not enough to have just security proof. You have to publish a hash function, declare some bounties, wait till people start breaking it. They started breaking some reduced versions, some modified constants, and you come out and say, well, you guys, you have broken the wrong version, now try to break right version. You reject submissions to some proper conference because they've broken right version, or maybe you reject submissions that break the right version, but you think it's not yet time to publish such a result. So it's all kind of it's all complicated. Third-party cryptanalysis, it's a subtle thing. And yeah, in addition to this, you have to use this. It must be small in circuit. So like hash function, like really powerful and fast, must be small in circuit in order to minimize prover time. So like these two things were not enough. The third thing really like a killer requirement. Okay, let's try to see what we have here, possibly. So designs flourish. So this all started with MIMSI in 2016, and there were like a chain of hash functions that arise from MIMSI. There was Friday, there was Poseidon, Rescue, Reinforced Concrete that we're talking about here, some other stuff, I don't know how they are pronounced. You see, there is also a problem in hash function naming that the names are not kind of self-telling. You have to always explain why do you call a function this way. For example, the guys, they decided to call a function Neptune. Well, why do you call it Neptune? Because you have already Poseidon, and you have many projects named Neptune. They are kind of related projects. Now you have a hash function named Neptune. What happens if you use a hash function Neptune in a project named Neptune? What happens? No one knows. There's another chain of designs based on the hardness of discrete log in analytic curves, and this started with the Chaum hash function in 1991. Now we have Pedersen and Sensimilla, very nice designs, also small in circuits and provably secure. Before we have a quantum computer, but we'll never have a quantum computer, so they're secure. And yeah, all this family of functions, they are designed. There are several problems with that. First of all, some of them get broken, the more the better. So some of MIMSI, something is broken, Friday was totally broken, Grendel was broken, a little bit, yes. So with this discrete log hash function, the problem is its pre-image resistance is not that good. We cryptanalysts call it broken, but yeah, in this case, we just call it okay, weak pre-image resistance, so far okay. But still, some analysis is present, but it's better to have more analysis. And we're kind of afraid because all these hash functions are designed on new principles. And it takes quite some time to understand these principles. Then it takes more time to develop new attacks based on these principles. And worse enough, you have to battle algebraic attacks. And algebraic attacks is really a nightmare. That you can't just estimate the complexity of all these attacks because they are complicated. This Grobner-based attack, for example, Ferdinand is a great expert on how these attacks work, and he can confirm that estimating complexity of the stack is non-trivial, so you can compute a wrong number of the number of rounds you need in your function. So the problem also in the design is that in order to withstand such attacks, your hash function must be on one hand of high algebraic degree. On the other hand, it should be reducible to a system of small degree equations. And this makes us think that if we encode this as a circuit, if we have to have something of high degree, then we have to have many multiplications. If we have to have many multiplications, that our functions will be big in circuits. And this is like negative feedback, and we don't know how to break out of this loop. So the problem is, yes, we can't just make it fast and secure. And you can see this on this if we consider older proof systems like Groth 16, and if we compare proving time measured in R1CS constraints with speed, you can see like there are like two families of functions. So one of them is this algebraic hash functions. You see they're like kind of super slow because this is like the speed. This axis is the speed on CPU when you just compute a hash function, and this one is the number of constraints. So in the case of SHA-2 and Blake, you have like tens of thousands of constraints, but they're super fast. Here we have few constraints, but they're super slow. How to choose between super slow but small and super fast but big, it's unclear. So we have to design something new. And we were looking for something that is like fast, ZK friendly, and high algebraic degree, and like failed thousands of times, really. Before we met with lookup arguments. And here come the contributions that we will describe a hash function for 256-bit fields. They'll be also designed for 64-bit fields and for smaller domains as well. So lookup arguments is really, really cool trick. So we have seen today already a talk about calc. We have Halo2 lookup argument. We have lookup argument. They allow proving that some entry, which is private entry or not necessarily private entry, is in some table, not too big table. And this gives us an additional element of a circuit. So in circuit, we can prove not only that we have multiplied two things, we got the third one, but we also can prove that something is looked up in a table, and here is the result. But how to use it? How to use it in hash function design? How to use this lookup things properly so that you have something working and secure? The problem is that lookups must be in small tables, or rather small tables. But in circuits, you work with big field elements. So clear problem is how to come from big field elements to smaller tables. So, well, natural ways try to decompose somehow, like with native computer arithmetic, when you have like 32-bit words, it's easy to decompose into bytes. 32-bit word is 4 bytes. All the 4 bytes are 32-bit words. So this mapping is bijective, is easy to decompose and compose back. But in fields, in particular in prime fields, it's all much more difficult. So suppose you have decomposed into 16 bits, then you looked it up in some table, and then you get 16-bit as a result, but how do you compose it back? How do you compose these limbs of 16-bit limbs so that you can get a field element? Remember, you must have no collisions. You must have no overflows of this field element. So how to ensure that you still get a field element after you compose them back? So just the lookup argument is not sufficient, but you have to do something smart here. And yeah, here's a simple example. That's the main technical slide of the talk. So suppose you have a prime number 769. And 769, how to decompose it into, well, two parts. How to decompose it? Well, you can see that like 769, if you divide it by 30, you get 25 and 19 as a remainder. So what kind of hints is that you can divide by 30 and get something from 0 to 24, and you can take a remainder modulo 30, and then you get from something from 0 to 29. But of course, if you notice that not all the things are possible, right? So if you're like in, for example, 768, then this will be 24, but if this is 24, this cannot be arbitrary, because this prime number is not a product of these two. So this must be something smaller. So you have to be smart. And the idea is that you can, 24, you declare a special case. So 24, you don't do anything with 24. It's a standpoint. And it's a fixed point, sorry. You somehow permute from 0 to 23, but 24 you keep. With these guys, what is dangerous? It's dangerous to overflow. It's dangerous to go beyond this 19, 18 actually. So you're okay from modifying from 0 to 19 a little bit, but if you're in the higher part, it must be a fixed point. So some parts are fixed point, some are not fixed points. So this lookup is and the kind of exercise. So if you like add them together the same way you divide it, then there is no overflow. Like simple exercise. Why it doesn't overflow? The nice thing here is that if you implement this, if you think of this as a polynomial, it has pretty much high degree. In particular over this big field, because you're like one of this fixed point, this is also fixed points, this has a high degree. In particular, when you compose them back, this kind of integer operations, that makes the entire thing very high degree. And this solves our problem. This solves the problem that we need to get high degree to battle these algebraic attacks. And of course, with bigger fields, it's pretty much the same, but more complicated. So in the big field, what you do, you take a prime, you divide it not to 2 bins, but in bigger number, 27 bins. You do this smart substitutions and so on. The thing is, altogether, you need like 43 lookups, not 27 lookups, because you also have to take care of this edge cases. Basically, these edge cases, they add lookups into your. But as a result, the algebraic degree is like super cool degree. So you don't bother with algebraic analysis anymore. So it doesn't matter if you are mistaken by like a factor of 2 or 3 here, right? And this operation, this decomposition and composition back, is called bars. The bars, they reinforce concrete and they reinforce our hash function. There are some also standard tricks of symmetric people. They can't just take and use bars. They have to wrap it with some extra stuff here, confusion, diffusion, and so all this old stuff getting back to Shannon. So to prevent some attacks and blah, blah, blah. So eventually the full scheme has more operation than this. But the cool thing here is that the structure is very much, it very much resembles some older hash function design and also block cipher design, so that we just can take the old security analysis and reuse it. It's not like we take Grosvenor basis analysis, but we take some old cryptanalysis from 2000s, even from 90s really, from the era before internet, and apply it to our hash function, and it works beautifully. So no need to rely on Grosvenor basis anymore. Performance. Performance is really cool here. So if we compare, if we look into proof systems where lookups are possible, then, well, we can't just measure anymore the proof time as the number of constraints, because with custom gates and arbitrary degree and large number of columns, so the best thing we were able to compute is so-called area degree product. So for Plonk-like systems, you take the area is the size of a matrix of your witness, and you multiply by the maximal degree of a polynomial that encodes a gate. And what happens here is that you see that like Blake and SHA-2 are still very high degree products. But regarding performance, reinforced concrete for BLS field that we originally think of, it's actually very close. It's much closer to SHA and Blake that are previous designs. And the thing is, we can do even better. So yeah, for prime numbers rising from BLS curve, we can be really close. But for 64-bit primes, if the 64-bit primes are used in a proof system, we can be really, really close. So yeah, applications, the same as everywhere. So snarks, Merkle trees, verifiable encryption, authenticated encryption, everything is ready. So what I want to talk in the very end, this is really work in progress. So in some snarks, like Plonky 2, there's a very nice prime number used. The 64 minus 32 plus 1. And the thing is, addition and multiplication in this field is very fast. It's much faster, just basically bit shifts and addition. So you do it, it's much better than in this 256-bit fields. And what is nice here is that you can also do decomposition nicely. So the maximal number in this field is just like this. The cool thing is that you can separate into 16 bits, like 64-bit number into 16 bits, and your operation will be just permute bits. It has very high degree, just permute bits, and add them up together, and that's it. Just permute. You don't have to design any smart test box like high degree, blah, blah, just permute bits. Another exercise proves that the overflow doesn't occur. And the thing is, since you permute bits and 0, this H case remains 0, so you don't have overflow. Yeah, pretty much the same structure. Yes, and the claim is, well, of course, there are problems. We have like 8 elements in the state. We have more expensive diffusion layer and so on, but speed really rules here. So you see, like, we're just 2 times slower than SHA-2, just 2 times slower than SHA-2. It was unimaginable like several years ago, 2 times slower than SHA-2. Now we can do it, so we can, hopefully we can design something better like in the concrete layer and in this bricks, we call them bricks. They are also some low degree algebraic stuff. Maybe we can do something really better here. And then it can be on par with SHA-2, not with Blake yet, but but with SHA-2, we hope to be really on par with SHA-2. But I think that's what we have already is quite good. So, lookup arguments have helped us a lot. Thank you, guys. Thank you, everyone who designed lookup arguments. That's really cool stuff. So, and ZK-friendly hash functions are not slow anymore. They are friendly to everyone. They're just friendly hash functions. And we use security analysis from all good old times. And we promise to deliver even faster hashes for your specific prime field. Thanks.